Hi, welcome to Chad's Silversmithing. Before we get too far in, if you wouldn't mind hitting the like button, that helps to promote my channel. I appreciate it. I think today I'm going to do kind of what I think is going to be a fun project. Today's project is going to involve a little bit of something with some movement, at least I hope it does, and we'll see how that turns out. But it's going to be sort of a pendulum kind of pendant with sort of bicycle spokes on it. But we're going to give that a try today and see how it turns out. Before we get started, I wanted to thank some people. I wanted to thank Cindy H., who is my newest patron over on Patreon. Thank you for signing up, Cindy. I appreciate it, and I look forward to getting to know you over there. I also wanted to thank my other patrons over there. They've been great supporters, and it's a marvelous group of people with a lot of knowledge, and I really appreciate all the cool stuff we talk about over there. So, my YouTube subscribers, we just passed 9,000, which is awesome. I don't know how to thank you all for finding me interesting enough to watch over and over again, but I really do appreciate it. I so appreciate the nice comments that you put in the comment section, and I really, really do find the Buy Me a Coffee things helpful as far as supplies. So thank you so much for those things. That helps out a lot. With those things being said, let's get started. Let's see what I sketched up today. This is my design idea book. And anymore, whenever I'm starting a project, I draw out a kind of a diagram of what I'm going to make. It helps me to come up with, a better plan. They come in handy when you're looking to have something that'll allow you to draw something symmetrically, because it's got this little grid pattern in the background that helps me. So here's my thought. I have this blue topaz. It's a pretty blue topaz. It's about 7 millimeters, I believe. And I'm going to put that right in a bezel right there. And here's what I'm thinking. I want these little spoke things to wrap around like this and have kind of a matching curve on this piece of 18 gauge that I'm going to attach those spokes to. And then there's going to be a bail that's going to be connected to a tube that sticks out of the back of here and revolves around another tube. So the spokes and the stone and the bezel and everything should be able to move freely, swivel within that tube there, and give it a little bit of movement. And then this is going to be kind of a sandwich bail up top, where I have a circle on the front, a circle on the back, and I'll put some borders on the top and the bottom so that the chain can go through there. This sideways view is kind of how I'm thinking it's going to be configured. I made the bezel already in advance because I needed to see if I was going to have enough room to put the number of pieces of wire that I want to be stacked on top of each other attached to this. So I think this will be a fun one. I hope I can pull it off, but if you want to see how to make a faceted stone bezel, I have a video about that. I'll put a link right there. I did this one the same way I usually do, except I put 3 layers into it, so it's got 3 layers of round wire stacked on top of each other, and that gives me a pretty high point for the stone to sit in like that. So that way I can keep the bezel tall, so I have room to connect these wires too, if that makes sense. I pre-punched out a couple of these for the bail up here, so I think that'll be good. But I think the first thing we need to do is we need to take the back of, if we're looking at the bezel from the side, I'm going to solder on a tube that comes out like this out of maybe 26 gauge sheet. And then I need to make a tube that fits right around it that will be connected to this up here. And that'll spin around this thing. And then we're doing a tube rivet where once that's on there and everything's all ready to go, I'll use a dapping punch to bend these outwards like this a little bit so it holds it in place. And then the half round wire will go there, and then our little sandwich bail will be here. Right? And the rest of this over here will swing down like that. So this is basically this from the side view. So this would be curving away down at the bottom here. Alright, so let's get started. I'm going to make a little tube out of 26 to fit right on the inside there. We'll see if we can't get that to work. So let me find some 26 gauge sheet. Let's make it 5 millimeters, I think. I'll just go with that and see how that works. I'll just cut this whole thing off. And then we'll decide how much of it we need. So this needs to be small enough to where it's kind of right on the inside lip there, because I'm going to use 22 gauge sheet for the thing that revolves around it to give it a little more structure. Let's see how close we can get there. That's pretty close. I think I'm going to use that as kind of a spot to cut it off. If you're new to my channel, I use primarily hard silver sheet solder, which looks like this. And I use spray-on flux called My-T-Flux. Well, liquid flux, I spray it on. Okay, I'm just going to solder this closed. I have a few pieces of solder on the pad already from when I was prepping earlier. Let's get started on this. My torch is a Silversmith model, which is an acetylene air torch. Let's round this back out again. See where we are at on size. I think that's pretty good, as long as I can get it centered there. And there's likely enough solder in there for me to get this solder done, but I'm probably going to add some more anyway just to make sure. So just to make sure there's enough solder, I'm just going to pick a little bit of solder onto the back of this. If you haven't seen pick soldering, that is a very useful skill, and it tremendously improved my silversmithing abilities when I learned how to do it. So there's a video right there on how to do pick soldering. It takes a little practice, but once you get it down, it really helps a lot. It allows you to put solder in places that prior to learning how to do that, it's sometimes difficult to get it. See, I'll just be able to pick these up and pre-melt a little bit on here. That's pretty good, actually. It was slightly off center. I think I got it closer. It may not be perfect, but I think it's good enough. Okay, for the piece that goes around, I think I'm going to use 22 gauge. Sometimes when you cut things with the shears, it gets a little bit curved. So one side nice and flat, and then we can file the other side to match. That looks about right. So it's got a little extra space there, a little extra space there, but it's snug so it won't turn. So I think that'll compensate for the snugness. I guess we'll see. We can always stretch it, or we can redo it if we need to. We'll cut it. It's a little bit snug on there, which is fine, because once I smooth out the inside of this, it should make it rotate nicely. So I did a little dremeling off camera, and now it spins nicely. I just kind of smoothed out the outside and the inside of this a little bit. But in order to make this usable, we need to attach, this is going to be underneath the stone here, so we need to attach it to this upright part, and I'm going to use number 4 low dome half round for that. I don't need a huge piece of it, it's just kind of wide half round like this. So I'm going to cut off a piece that's a little bit longer than what I needed, so I don't know, 16 millimeters. I want this to attach to this thing, so I need to curve the top part of this. I'm also going to have a bail at the top of this that's pretty close to the same size as this bezel, or what the bezel is on top of it, I should say. And so we'll need to make that bail to attach to this. Then we can start working on the little spinny part there. For the sake of speed, I'm just going to use my rotary tool with an abrasive silicone white wheel and carve that into shape. So you can see I made a nice curve to match the curve of this tube that we're going to use. If I can find the solder joint, put that towards this side. Probably solder itself on, but I still have some extra solder here that I can just pick on there if I need to. So that'll be kind of like that. Moves pretty freely. All right. So now we got to figure out where we want this to go to. I have it drawn to about there. So not particularly big gap between those two, just enough to kind of differentiate them. Alright, so we need to make our little sandwich bail to attach to that. So I used a disc cutter to punch these out. I just chose the size I wanted, and there's a little peg with a kind of a cutting forward edge. You just hit it with a hammer really hard. So they're nice, perfect little circles. But I used 18 gauge for these. One will be the front, one will be the back. we need to have something that sticks up high enough so that there's a big enough passage for a chain to go through there. Because I call it a sandwich bale because it's got two pieces of bread basically on top of some stuff in the middle. But the stuff in the middle is just going to be at the top and the bottom so that the chain can pass through. So I usually use these, I think they're 1.7 millimeter or something like that. Snake chains? Or something like that, I think they're called. But I need this to be tall enough for that to go through easily. So I'd like to have it at least, you know, maybe 3 times the height. So if it's close to 1 time, it'll be too tight and it'll drag through there. So let's make it about 3 times as tall. So I think on the very edge of that, like this on the bottom, be a good starting place. Get that solder right onto the edge. That's pretty good. Just going to pick up a little solder here. You know, opposite this, we want another one. I'm going to do something inside to make sure the chain doesn't get caught on the edges of these. Looks pretty good to me. For this one, I'm just going to pick a little bit on there because I'm going to plop it right. This will be the top here, so this is going to be kind of close to this. I don't want to seal it in there because that, when I go to put the cap on, it can cause some pressure changes in a sealed cavity, so I don't want it to be a sealed cavity. I just want it to be something sort of roundish for the chain to roll around. So now we're just going to solder that on top of that. And then we can attach it to this thing here. So, easiest way I think to do that would be to sweat a bunch of solder on the bottom of this, and then just lay it over there and heat it till it flows. What I forgot to do is to file the top of this real flat. So I'm going to do that before I solder those two together. So now I need to get this curved so I can attach those two together. So that'll be my next step. Alright, I curved that with the rotary tool over there. I'm going to use a little bit of this solder to pick it together. I have the smaller piece that was going up and downwards. That's probably okay. Cool it off and take a peek at it. Okay, so this will be going in there. I think I can pickle this now because I'm only going to attach it at the end by basically turning this bottom hoop here into a kind of a tube rivet by just bending it outwards a little bit. Hopefully this thing will still spin. But we need to next make our little decoration, which is going to be this spokey thing. So I need to sit and think about how I'm going to do that. So I'll be right back. Alright, I did some thinking, and so what I did was I took a piece of 18 gauge and I figured out about how tall it needed to be to match up with this, and it's probably a little too tall still, but I'd rather have too much than not enough. I can always file it shorter. And I curved it to match this, and then I kind of took note of where these different wires are going to come through, and I think I'll do it like this. And what I did was I scribed lines to follow so they'd be next to each other. So it'll be like this. The bottom ones be down there. The next ones out will be these ones. And then these ones. And then the top one will be the outer one like that. So, and I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to use my drill to drill some holes there in order to run these through to make sure that we can get them to solder in there nicely without having any movement going on. Because I'll be soldering 8 different ends to this, and it'd be hard to keep them in place when I do this, especially if it's already a curve. So we'll just run them right through the sheet, solder it from the outside probably, and then go from there. Okay, so let's go drill this. I'm going to flatten this back out to drill it. Lately I've been using an awl because that has a nice sharp point as my center punch. My actual center punch has, its point isn't quite as sharp. So this is just a little diamond reamer. I put a little. Okay, I think that should do it. I'll double check all the holes with some 16 gauge wire. Let it cool off for a minute. So I've got all the holes drilled. I did a little polishing on this just to get most of the big scratches out of there, and then I pounded it around something and now I got more scratches. So I'm just going to leave it. That's fine. We can clean it up as best we can. But I think it's time to solder our little 16 gauge wires to this. And when I look at how this is going to be sitting up, the one on the very bottom of the bezel here is going to be the one that kind of tapers all the way around. And so let me find the center of all of this. going to be squeezing around the bezel there. So maybe something sort of close to it. This one here. I want this right at the base of that bezel like that. And so I think what I'll do is I'm going to push this into the magnesia block that's sitting right at the base. And we'll just solder that one first. Let's try that. I got some solder right there. I can probably just pick a little bit on there. I haven't really made anything quite like this. See how it works. Well, that's how it's going to be, basically. The next one is going to be these ones here, which actually cross over each other. Got this one lined up pretty well. I filed it a little bit thinner to save a little space on the side of the bezel here. Hopefully that'll help some. That looks pretty good. I'm going to give that a try. Okay, so I'm going to spend a little time playing with the ends of these to get them to go through those little holes. It's going to probably have to file them tapered just a little at the end in order to get them fed in. And the more resistance you have from each hole, the harder it's going to be to push it in there, I feel like. So I'm going to get this all positioned and then we'll come back and solder it. Okay, so just so you don't run into the same problems that I did here, since I'm kind of flying the plane while I'm building it here, it was difficult to get all of those through there. One of the problems was one of them was way short, so next time I would cut these longer. The other thing I might do is feed them through the sheet, solder them in so they're all at the right length, and then solder the whole thing to this. But I'm not sure if that would work or not. I don't know. So I'm going to do my best to get this to look symmetrical. We'll see how it turns out. Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. This one was kind of an experiment. A little bit of a sloppy solder over here. I'm going to see if I can fix that. Alright, well, I'll get that as neatened up as I can. I think it may look pretty good, but I'll be snipping all those off at the bottom. And then I'll let it pickle, and you know, I'll set the stone and put them together after I polish them, and I'll show you that. Alright, so a couple of notes about this. I'm not super pleased with how messed up the wires got when I was trying to get them through those holes. So I think if I was to do this a second time, I would do something a little bit different in order to make those look nicer. It's also very difficult to polish down in there, so I'm not super happy about that. But I think the concept in general is pretty cool. So I'm going to go ahead and set this. So I'll do some additional cleanup on that and see if I can get it any better. Put this thing on and go like that. I think we just need to find a dapping punch that's just about the right size. This one. That's too big. No, it's just right. It's too big. right. So we should be able to put that on a chain. We get a little bit of movement going that way, which is fun. Like I said, I'm not super pleased with the inside part, but I'll just deal with that. I may take this one apart and try again. But either way, that's generally what I was shooting for, minus some of the imperfections. So, so it's a partial success, at least concept-wise. I like how this part of it works. That's great. And I think that's kind of a cool idea. This I think I can work on and get better, but we'll get it cleaned up as best we can and get as decent a picture as we can, and then we'll call it a day. So. Okay, well that was the blue topaz spoked pendulum project, I guess. I haven't come up with a name for it yet. But I wanted to thank you for taking the time to watch it. If you enjoyed the content, make sure to hit the like button before you leave. And take a moment to check out some of my other videos. I have over 270. We're probably getting close to 280 if we haven't passed it. But there's quite a bit over there. There's a playlist page if you want to check that out. It splits it up into a little bit more organized pile of videos for you to sort through, so check that out. If you're looking for beginner videos, there's a beginner list. If you're looking for videos that involve pendants, there's a pendant list. So use that as a guide to navigating my channel. I think it helps. You might also want to consider going to the video description. Not only do I show the materials that I used for the project, there's some links to some relevant places, like my Patreon if you want to check that out. There's a merch store if you want to get yourself one of those nice design idea books so you can sketch out your ideas. There's a Buy Me a Coffee link, and there's a link to my website. And we're having a Valentine's Day 20% off sale on the website, so you might want to check that out if you need to get your Valentine a gift. But either way, thanks for watching my video, and happy silversmithing. Take care.